Hello, my name is Bill Newport, and I'm serving as the pastor of the Gayton Road Christian Church, located at 12,050 Ridgefield Parkway in Henrico, Virginia. We are currently meeting online via Zoom gatherings with the sermons available on our YouTube page and also available on Facebook. We're doing this for the safety of both our community and our congregation. But we want you to know that whether we're meeting online or in person, your life is fully affirmed among us, and you are welcomed in this congregation. Now, I understand that lots of churches will say that, so let me elaborate. You are welcome at the Gayton Road Christian Church. You are welcome here, whether you are old or young or a little bit of each, male or female, or a little bit of each, rich or poor, or a little bit of each, queer or straight, or a little bit of each, black or brown or white, or a little bit of each, doubting or believing, or a little bit of each. You are welcomed here. Today's sermon is for July 5th, 2020, and is titled Rest for the Weary, based on Matthew 11. I participated recently in an online discussion group with a number of pastors, and the topic of our discussion was the challenges of serving a church during these troublesome times. The particular topic we were addressing on this occasion was leading worship when we were not able to gather together in person. One woman pointed out that at first everyone was excited. They were learning new technology. They were enjoying the Zoom gatherings and the Google gatherings and the Facebook Live gatherings. She was making use of all kinds of technology. And people were excited to learn new ways to gather. But she said, now people seem a little weary of meeting together online in this fashion. And I imagine that that's how many of us are feeling. Many of us are familiar with the feeling of being worn out in general, of feeling exhausted and tired and weak. We know how it is to feel weary. Weary is that feeling that is beyond simply being tired. Tired is that feeling you have at the end of the day when you get home after a busy work week. It's the weekend and you lay your head down to sleep. But weary is beyond that. Weary is beyond being tired. Weary is that feeling you have when you want to sleep and you lay your head down, but you just can't. You feel besieged, beset, inundated, and overwhelmed. This feeling of being weary comes to us for several different reasons. We experience it on days like this. We are weary of the pandemic. We are weary of wearing a mask, and we are weary when we go out in public and others around us are coughing and not wearing a mask. We are weary of staying at home, weary of hearing the Democrats, weary of hearing the Republicans. We are weary of the president and all of his tweets. We are weary with Congress and the courts. We are weary of racism, weary of those who deny that racism systemically exists in our society. We are weary of the prejudice against our gay, lesbian, and transgender friends. We are weary of the media, of CNN, of MSNBC, of Fox, of OANN. We are weary. Weary is that feeling of being tired of the battle. The battle about who's got the best chicken. Is it Chick-fil-A or Popeyes? And I have to tell you, it's Popeyes. If you haven't tasted it, go get one soon. You know the feeling of being weary. Life takes an unexpected turn. I've been there a lot. I've had a foot infection, cancer, a stroke, a car wreck, fears of COVID, kidney issues. I understand the feeling of being weary, and you've been there too. You've had health concerns. There have been conflicts at home, difficulties at work, emotional stress. You know what it's like to be burdened and beaten down and troubled and tormented by life. And you know the impact that has on you physically and mentally and emotionally and spiritually. And so Sunday comes and you want relief, but you're weary of this Zoom gathering. You are weary of feeling like worship is going to ever be like a cross between the Hollywood Squares and the Brady Bunch. You want to be able to see your friends. I know what you're looking for today. You want a message of relief and rest for the weary. And everyone these days seems to have something to offer that promises us some hope of rest. The bookstores are now open. The politicians are at work. Social media is all abuzz. There are snake oil salesmen, charlatan clergy, and all of them have a formula or a guideline or some keys or prescriptions or methods or blueprints to offer you success and contentment in relationships, fulfillment and enlightenment, health and money, all those things that we think will bring us rest in our weariness. Religion plays the game too. There are pastors and priests and bishops and rabbis and imams and pundits and shaman and gurus. They've all got a book. They all have a conference. They all have an audio program. They all have an online meeting somewhere. They all promise a message of rest for the weary. And people are so weary that they will lay down the cash or write the check or hand over the credit card, paying almost anything in the hope of finding rest. So we come to the text today, and Jesus has spoken. He says, "Come to me, all of you who are weak and heavy laden, and I will give you rest." But not so fast. Before he said those words, he had some other things to say first. He challenges our sense of self-sufficiency, our efforts, all of our religious enterprises. Look at what Jesus addressed just prior to those words. He talks about how they treated the baptizer. John was too strict, too austere. He was fasting. He never drank. He never partied. He had no fun. He didn't even go to a synagogue social. He was moral and conservative, and they condemned him. They called him a demon. Then Jesus comes. He's not so restrictive. He goes to parties. He has celebrations. He laughs and tells stories and jokes. And he enjoys an occasional glass of wine. And he accepted people just as they were. So what did they do? They called him a glutton and a drunkard. And they said that he palled around with tax collectors and all of the other so-called undesirables. Religion will put you in an untenable, no-win situation. It always will. I've been a pastor for 30 plus years. I am a recovering religious person myself. Let me tell you something. Religious people are some of the most insufferable people you'll ever meet. For them, your best efforts are never going to be enough. But they refuse to be accountable for their own high standards. The same things they set for others, they don't follow themselves. And religion promises rewards, but it will tie us up in knots on occasion. And religion promises us spiritual transformation, but usually it only offers us obligatory traditions. And religion speaks of freedom and will make us a slave to burdens and obligations. Religion is never satisfied, so it can never bring us satisfaction. Religion always wants more, but no matter how much we give, it's never enough. Here, Jesus, he points out, if you play a happy song and invite people to dance, they will say that you are not serious. But he also says, if you play a funeral dirge and invite people to lament, they will call you weak and histrionic. Jesus deals with religion. He calls out the litany of woes to the towns where he preached. He preached in places where he did wonders and performed miracles and healed the sick and offered teachings about God's power that he in his own person manifest. And Jesus compares all of these places to locations of notorious evil. Jesus says there is no difference between the two, between the places he preached and the evil places of the world. The problem was he had shown in some of those places God's grace was at work in his words and deeds, but they kept playing the religious game. Nothing changed. They had great religious experiences, but nothing changed. He expressed God's love in great miracles, but nothing changed. They saw the wonders and powers of God at work in him, but with them nothing changed. They heard the word of the reign of God. They heard the message of divine grace, yet nothing changed. They refused the transformation. They chose to remain stuck. They kept playing religion's game. They kept playing religious games. Nothing changed. They had Jesus, but they never allowed themselves to experience the transformation that he brought. The grace of Jesus is the power of God to bring transformation without giving us an attitude of entitlement. The problem now, is that people want to collect religious experiences without Jesus-focused transformation. They want a liturgical-centered experience, or they want a praise and worship experience. They want old music or new music. They want a new preacher experience. They want a new conference or a new book or a new teaching experience. And they gather up all of these things, and we gather up all these things, and we are emotionally moved, but transformation never takes place. That's why so many places called church are filled with religious addicts and very few disciples who are following the way of Jesus. Jesus calls all that religion a waste of time. Paul uses a different word. Translators interpret it as dung, but there is a more earthly and accurate word for that. You know that word. We won't say it here. So after pointing out the failure of religion, Jesus then points to his Abba, to his Papa, to God, and declares what really matters. The religious practices, the deeds, the rituals, the behaviors, the codes of conduct, they are never enough. It's only a big pile of smelly stuff. Hear me. You will never be smart enough or religious enough or active enough. You will never do enough or be enough. But the good news is this: you don't have to be. I don't have to be. We can actively rest in God's grace, and we will find that the Spirit transforms us after we rest in faith. Here's Jesus' prayer to his Father for the Spirit's invitation to us. Jesus says, "At that time, I thank you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because you have hidden these things from the wise and the intelligent, and you have revealed them to infants. Yes, Father, for such was your gracious will. All things have been handed over to me by my Father, and no one knows the Son except the Father, and no one knows the Father except the Son, and anyone to whom the Son chooses to reveal him." Then he says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and are carrying a heavy burden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light." Jesus says that this is revealed to infant children. Now, one of the things we know about infant children is that they only are there to receive. An infant child can't go to work. An infant child can't turn on the computer. It's getting that way soon, but not yet, not for the infant. An infant child cannot perform all of the rituals and requirements of a religious institution. An infant child cannot do any of those things. Jesus said that these things were revealed to infant children, not to the wise, not to the intelligent, not to the powerful, not even to the meek and humble, but to infant children. Infant children do not have any of those qualities. Infant children are totally dependent on their parent. They can do nothing. They can't get up and walk around. They can't go get a job. They can't serve on a committee. They can't serve on a team at the church. An infant child can only be carried and loved and cared for. And Jesus said that God's message of the kingdom, that message of rest in his presence, was revealed to infant children. It's revealed in the embrace of love, in the compassion of the Father. You don't have to try. Just allow the embrace of your heavenly parent to wrap arms around you. Simply receive in meekness and gentleness. Simply receive God's love today. I know you're weary. I know you're tired. I feel that way too. Our hope is in Jesus, who said, "Come unto me, all of you who are weak and heavy burdened, and I will give you rest. For my burden is light. There's nothing to carry. There's nothing to weigh you down. There's only the embrace of divine grace. There's only a Father who loves us. Allow that love to transform you, and you will find rest in weary days. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.